Hi everyone, welcome back to Collective Kitchens Online at Home. Today I'm going to show you how to make a super easy bread recipe. We're going to make buns. Hopefully they'll come out to about hamburger sized, but you can adjust it so that they come out a little bit smaller, so you can have like slider sized buns. It's up to you, but today we're going to do hopefully about 8 hamburger sized buns. So I'm going to show you the ingredients I have here. We have oil, we have 1/3 cup of oil, some sugar, salt, eggs, and water. And then of course we've got flour, but we will add that in after. So for right now I'm going, and of course our yeast. So I'm just going to bloom the yeast first. I'm just taking 1 packet of instant yeast straight into a large bowl. And I'm going to add to that 1 cup of warm water. And I'm just going to give that a whisk so that all of that yeast has started to dissolve and bloom. And then I'm going to add my sugar. So the recipe I'm using calls for about 1/4 cup of sugar. I've reduced that because I don't want my buns to be too sweet. I've got probably about 2 heaped teaspoons in here. But if you want a sweeter bun, you can use, like I said, up to about 1/4 cup. And then I'm going to add my 1/3 cup of oil. I'm using olive oil because that's all I have, but any vegetable oil works. Now once you've given that a mix, you want to let it sit for about 5 minutes and let that yeast bloom. Okay, so we've been waiting 5 minutes. As you can see, the yeast has dissolved and started sort of bubbling at the top there. So we are going to add our eggs, our salt, and our flour. So about a teaspoon, or I like to do just a big pinch of salt in there. And 1 large egg. I only have these really little eggs, so I'm going to crack 1.5. Well, I'm going to crack 2, whisk them together, and then I'm going to put about 3/4 of this mixture in. I'm going to use the rest to do a little glaze on top of, a little egg wash on top of the buns, because that makes it really nice. Okay. Okay, so we've saved a little bit for later. And now we're going to add about 3 cups. It might vary depending on how your dough comes together. So I'm going to start off with maybe 2.5 cups of flour. And then we'll see how we go. Okay, so that's 2.5 cups. Okay. And I'm just gonna go for it. And I'll turn this around so you can see what I'm doing. So it's super goopy right now. Just gonna mix it together. I can already see that this is gonna need way more flour, maybe another cup. Okay, so I'll add that now. do half a cup to begin with. Always easier to add more flour than to add more of everything else. Just let you see how it looks. Okay, so I ended up adding close to 3 cups, not quite 3 cups, and it's looking about right. It's really soft and pliable, a little bit sticky, but we'll be working it out on some more flour anyway, so we'll pick some of that up. It will lose some of its tackiness, although it might be just a tad too tacky. Okay, and when it all sort of comes together as like one uniform piece, then it's ready to start working on a floured surface. So I'm just going to use the rest of the flour that I didn't put into the dough to lightly flour this surface. And then I'm going to gently knead until it feels sort of ready. This is a super easy dough. It only takes about 3 or 5 minutes of kneading until it's completely ready to go. So you don't need a mixer, you don't need anything except a bowl and your hands, really. And again, if it feels too tacky at any point, if it feels wet, just add a little bit more flour in. Just work little by little. Okay, as you can see, it's holding its shape really well. When you press down, it sort of springs back gently. There's not too much flour in there, it's still quite soft and supple. So we're going to measure it into we're going to measure it into 8 pieces. The original recipe calls for 12, but I'm going to make them bigger because the last time that I did that, they came out really small, like this big, which is really nice for like sliders and things, but I want to make chicken burgers. Okay. Let's see. So weighing your dough is going to be the most accurate measurement. Just make sure that your baking is all even. Otherwise, if you have, some buns that are bigger than the others, they might be still sort of dense and underbaked in the middle than the rest. Perfect. Okay. So now we have 8 bits of dough of roughly equal size. What I'm going to do is roll them all into balls. You can re-knead if you need to slightly, just so you get like a nice hamburgery shape. What's really important, I find, is make sure the tops look like how you want the top of your bun to look. I thought the first time I made them that they would like fluff out and just sort of get rid of all those creases and look magically like a normal bun, but that does not happen. So just spend some time sort of making sure those folds and creases are on the bottom side of the bun and that the top is nice and smooth. Okay, so this is pretty much how you want your bun to look. Nice and smooth, even around the edges, nice little ball. So I'm going to go ahead and put those on a baking tray with parchment paper. And I'm going to do 4 buns per tray because in case they spread out, I don't want any of them touching each other. And this is where you can kind of shape them to what you want them to be. If you want sort of taller, more structural buns, then keep them in this sort of ball shape. If you want like flatter buns like you would find in the supermarket for hamburgers, press them down a little bit because they will, after they rest, basically retain the shape that they have when they go into the oven. So once you've placed them on their baking trays, cover them with a bit of plastic wrap and let them rest for just 10 minutes. They don't take long. Alright, so these buns have been sitting for 10 minutes now, and they're looking good. So final touches, I'm just going to brush a little bit of that leftover egg onto my buns, make a nice egg wash. And for a final touch, I'm going to sprinkle some sesame seeds right on top. And then they are ready to go in the oven. So they can be baked for between 8 and 12 minutes at 425. If you have 2 trays like I do, I like to swap them around halfway through, so the one that's on the lower shelf goes on the top, just so they get sort of an even chance to brown. So as you can see, they're looking really nice, these ones. Nice colouring on the top because of that egg wash. So I'm just going to pop them up on this tray. They will be hot, obviously. And then you can wait for them to cool, and then they're ready to dig into.